Kelvin's morning started like any other. The Australian sun was climbing lazily into the sky, casting its golden rays across his yard, illuminating the tall grass and the flowers he had spent the better part of spring planting. His small house, nestled at the edge of a forest in New South Wales, was quiet, serene. Kelvin, a man in his early 40s, liked it that way, peaceful, predictable. But before we get deeper into the story, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from today? Leave a comment below. But today would be anything but predictable. Kelvin sipped his coffee, taking in the crisp air as he admired the sprawling landscape before him. Birds chirped in the distance, and the occasional rustle of leaves signaled a soft breeze sweeping through the trees. It was a picture of calm, an ordinary moment in an ordinary day. Suddenly, a shadow passed overhead. Kelvin instinctively glanced up, his hand pausing mid-sip. It wasn't the shadow of a small bird or a passing cloud. This was something massive. As the shadow grew larger, darker, it was clear that something was descending rapidly toward his yard. Kelvin squinted, heart quickening, as an enormous bird of prey swooped down, landing heavily on his lawn with a loud thud. The sheer size of the creature was staggering. Its wingspan had to be at least 2 meters, if not more, and its talons looked sharp enough to slice through bone. The bird's piercing eyes, golden and intense, locked onto Kelvin. It was an eagle, a massive wedge-tailed eagle to be exact. But Kelvin had seen eagles before. Growing up in Australia, they were a common sight in the wild. Yet this eagle was different. It wasn't just its size that sent a chill through him. It was the way it watched him, almost as if it was assessing him. Kelvin set his coffee down, his fingers trembling slightly, his mind raced. Why would an eagle land here in his yard, so far from the open skies where it belonged? And why was it just staring at him? The eagle's gaze was unnerving, its intensity growing with each passing second. Something wasn't right. He could feel it deep in his gut, a strange, unsettling feeling that gnawed at him. As much as he loved wildlife, there was something about this eagle that made his skin crawl. Kelvin slowly stepped back toward his house, his eyes never leaving the eagle's. He fumbled in his pocket for his phone, trying to decide what to do. Call animal control? They'd surely laugh at him. But as his hand hovered over the call button, something strange happened. The eagle spread its wings, revealing a sight that sent Kelvin's heart into his throat. Clutched tightly in the bird's talons was something that wasn't supposed to be there, something small, metallic and shiny. He squinted, trying to make sense of it. It was a bracelet, a delicate gold bracelet, intricately designed as if it had been handcrafted. Kelvin froze, his mind raced, images flashing through his thoughts. He'd seen that bracelet before, it belonged to someone, but how? And why would an eagle be carrying it? Just then the eagle let out a deafening screech, its head tilting to the side as if beckoning him closer. Kelvin felt his heart pound in his chest. He had to figure out what was going on. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end as the unease deepened. Without thinking, he dialed 911, or rather the Australian emergency line. "Emergency services, what's your location?" came the calm voice on the other end. Kelvin cleared his throat, feeling ridiculous. Hi. I'm not sure how to explain this, but there's an eagle in my yard. It has something, I think it's important. Sir, if it's a wildlife issue, we recommend contacting... No, you don't understand, Kelvin interrupted, his voice shaky. This eagle has a bracelet, a woman's bracelet. I think it belongs to someone I know. There was a pause on the other end. A bracelet, sir? Yes, Kelvin pressed, his pulse quickening. I think it's connected to something bad. Sir, we'll send someone to check it out. Stay where you are. Kelvin hung up, his eyes still glued to the eagle, which had yet to move. His mind raced. The bracelet had belonged to his neighbor's daughter, Lily. She had gone missing 2 days ago. The town had been in an uproar since the disappearance. Lily was only 12 and her family was desperate to find her. The police had searched the forest, combed through every possible lead, but there had been no sign of her. Until now. Kelvin felt his stomach churn as the pieces started to come together. What were the chances that this eagle, of all things, would show up in his yard carrying Lily's bracelet? The possibility that this bird might be connected to her disappearance seemed far-fetched, impossible even, but the evidence was right in front of him. Moments later, he heard the distant sound of sirens approaching. The eagle still hadn't moved, its eyes following his every step as he slowly backed up toward his front porch. As the police car pulled up, two officers stepped out, their faces a mixture of confusion and curiosity as they took in the massive bird on Kelvin's lawn. "What's going on here?" one of the officers asked, approaching cautiously. Kelvin pointed at the eagle, his voice tense. "Look at its talons! That bracelet, it belongs to the girl who's missing, Lily, I'm sure of it." The officers exchanged glances, their skepticism evident, but when they saw the bracelet, their expressions shifted to one of shock. The senior officer, a burly man named Officer Taylor, pulled out his radio, his voice firm. "We need a forensic team out here, now!" The air grew tense as more police arrived, along with wildlife experts to deal with the eagle. It wasn't long before news of the discovery spread, and soon the small yard was bustling with activity. Kelvin watched in silence as the police carefully removed the bracelet from the eagle's talons, bagging it for evidence. The wildlife experts, having tranquilized the bird, moved it carefully into a cage to transport it for further examination. As the sun began to set, the yard was bathed in a strange golden glow. Kelvin sat on his porch, his mind swirling with questions. How had the eagle found the bracelet? Where had it come from? And most importantly, what did it mean for Lily? The investigation that followed was swift. The police used the bracelet as a crucial lead, tracking down the area where it had likely been dropped. With the help of wildlife experts, they were able to determine the eagle's flight path, leading them deep into the forest. For days, search teams scoured the dense woods, and hope began to flicker once again in the small town. And then, just when it seemed like the trail had gone cold, they found her. Lily had been trapped in a remote part of the forest, caught in an old hunting trap that had left her unable to move, weak and dehydrated, but alive. It was the miracle everyone had been waiting for. The story that followed captured headlines across Australia. The mystery of the eagle and the missing girl fascinated the nation. Wildlife experts were baffled by the bird's behavior, unable to explain how or why it had brought the bracelet to Kelvin's yard. Some called it coincidence, others a strange twist of fate. But for Kelvin, it felt like something more. As he stood on his porch a week later, watching the sunset once again, he couldn't shake the feeling that the eagle had come for a reason. That somehow, in ways he couldn't fully understand, the bird had played a part in bringing Lily home. And as the sky turned from gold to purple, Kelvin couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for the eagle, for the bracelet, and for the mystery that had led to the return of a young girl who was thought to be lost forever.